Hey everyone, Zandom here with another Dungeon Masters Tips. This time I'm going to be talking over how to go and make your games a bit more interesting and engaging for the players. So let's get right into it. My first little tip is to have interesting and entertaining critical successes and failures. Now, normally whenever I have critical success happen, that normally means something completely amazing happens. If the enemy is less than half health or something, I'll normally let the player just kill them outright after I let them roll for damage, just to make it feel like, oh yeah, I rolled a crit, that was great, and did so much damage. But what really, the real fun stuff happens when you get critical failures. Now, critical failures, I like to have what are called critical fumbles in my games. So whenever they roll a 1, or an enemy rolls a 1, I pull out a d6 that I have predetermined, okay, if they roll a 1, this happens, they roll a 2, this happens, for if they're using a weapon to attack, or if they're using a bow, or if they're using magic, or can just have something spontaneous happen if they're doing a skill check or something. Now, for a weapon, one of the least bad things that'll happen if you roll a 1 are you slip and fall on your face, pretty much, and go prone. Absolute worst thing that happens is you slip and fall and you accidentally stab yourself in the stomach and have dealt critical damage to yourself with that attack. Things like that. So it can be a bit more fun like that. When it comes to bows, you could either just miss wide if it's the least part, or if it's the least bad thing, and the absolute worst thing is your bowstring snaps, you smack yourself in the face and you stun yourself for a turn or so. You could also even hit your allies with that. And when it comes to magic, most of my games I like magic to be fairly unstable, so your staff could explode, something else could happen. Depending on what type of spell you're casting, you could electrocute yourself if you're using a lightning spell. You could blow your eardrums out if you're casting Thunder Wave or something like that. But critical failures can be entertaining, to say the least. And when it comes to monsters, sometimes if they roll a 1, I'll just kill them off. If it's the players, don't make the critical fumbles so bad that it kills them outright for the most part. But don't be afraid to make them slip up when they roll a 1, and don't be afraid to make them do amazing things when they roll 20s. My next tip is to let players self-determine how they kill certain creatures. Now, you don't have to do this with everything, because that just gets boring after a while. But when it comes to the last 1 to 3 creatures in a fairly large encounter, or just the last 1 or 2 enemies, really, just let them self-determine, just say, how do you want to do this, pretty much. And then they're like, oh yeah, I killed it, let's see here, I'm gonna go and do this. And they come up with something creative, and it excites them when they hear those words, because they get to do something unique, they get to describe something happening in the world. And you gotta remember, Dungeons and Dragons isn't just the Dungeon Master's the storyteller and the players are characters in your story. No, it is a group storytelling activity. So if you let players self-determine how they kill some things, it helps feed into the idea that they're helping write the story as well. And it really, I find, engages and excites my players. My next tip is to try voice acting your NPCs, even if you're not that great at it. Now, you don't have to be a master of voice acting to go and modify how you speak a little bit. And if you give an NPC a unique voice, like a nobleman, you make them sound a bit stuck up. Oh yes, I speak like this, I am a nobleman. You talk like that. Makes for a hell of a lot more rememberable character, because when they think, oh, stuck up voice, oh yeah, that's nobleman Fred or something, and things like that. Or if it's like an orc chieftain or something, you can just talk like this and say, I'm gonna rip your head off from your shoulders. Things like that. Just make for a lot more interesting RP sessions if you're actually, putting a voice in your characters' heads, and just it helps with everyone's imaginations. The next tip that I have is to not be afraid to be spontaneous. Now, some dungeon masters tend to have problems when it comes to players running off from what they have planned already. Some of them go so far as to say, oh yeah, there's a dragon over there that's an ancient dragon that'll kill you. No. Don't be afraid to come up with stuff on the spot. Now, it doesn't have to be especially amazing. You could tell them outright, hey, I don't have anything planned there, so if you go for that, we're going to have to end especially early. Or you could reuse the dungeon that you already have planned, reskin it a bit, and throw in some different creatures from the monster manual. If they decide to go on the road and you don't have anything planned, you could throw some random encounters at them or something. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything absolutely amazing, and random encounters don't have to be just combat or something. It could be they find a dead body and want to investigate, oh, who is this person? Where did he come from? Or something like that. Or if you want to get them really interested in it, you could say it's a nobleman, and if you find a dead nobleman, there's probably going to be a reward if you find the killer. Just don't be afraid to come up with a few things on the spot, because some of my best come up with ideas I've just come up with on the spot, and haven't planned out that much. But that's not to say you shouldn't plan for your games. I'm just saying, if your players go off in a different direction, be prepared to make a few changes to what you have planned for that week. And finally, my last tip will be, don't let combat drag until the last man for the enemies. Now, this is a big mistake that a lot of dungeon masters go with. It's just like, oh yeah, you're fighting a pack of goblins. Okay, you just keep fighting and fighting and fighting until all the goblins are dead. Great. Now, maybe that would be the case if the goblins were backed up in a corner and not able to, flee in any case, but most creatures, wild animals included, aren't gonna fight until they're dead. When you really think about it, most things don't want to die, so if they start to get to low health or something, it's probably going to run. Normally that's the case with groups of intelligent guys. They just see, oh hey, like they've wiped out half of our group, and we haven't really done much other than wound them a bit, so let's get out of here. That's what most of the guys' mindsets are going to be once they take sufficient casualties. They're probably going to make a break for it, unless they're backed into a corner or something and they literally can't run. There are some cases where there are creatures that don't ever run, like the undead normally doesn't ever run if it's unintelligent undead, like zombies. There are some creatures that just don't run ever because they're especially stubborn or something, or they're too slow to run away. But other than that, a big mistake is just they fight to the last man always, and this just makes combat drag on and on and on. And really, the game Dungeons and Dragons isn't all about combat. You shouldn't just be fighting things constantly. That's not where most of the fun comes from. So, let me give a quick recap of my 5 tips here. Tip 1, have more interesting and entertaining critical successes and failures. Tip 2, let the players self-determine some of their kills. Tip 3, at least try to voice act some of your NPCs. Tip 4, Don't be afraid to come up with some things on the spot if you have to. And tip 5, don't let combat drag on for more than it has to. And be rational with your villains, because, most of them aren't going to want to die. So, there you have it. I hope it helps, and if you like this video, please give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see more of my content as soon as it comes out. I've been Zandon, and I'll see you next time.